Future-Proof is sponsored by Learn Smart Academy, online revision courses for GCSE and A-Level. All your revision in one place, organised for you, interactive and game-changing. Welcome back from the break. Thank you so much for joining me, Sarah Hopwood, as I continue this programme looking at the negotiation skill. And I'm on the slide at the moment, which you can see here, looking at the 6 easy steps. And in this second half, I'm just going to be covering the rest of those steps. And then we'll move on. I'll make another programme where I perhaps unpack it and go into more detail with some of the areas here. So going into the break, I talked about the importance of preparing. And if you don't prepare, then you're prepared to fail. And so stage 2 is working out what it is that you want. And remember, there's a difference between what you want and what you need. And so when you're writing down what you want, make sure that you also ask yourself what it is that you or the business needs as well, to make sure that that need ends up on your list of wants. When you prepare for the negotiation process before going into the room, and I've said just going into the break, avoid telephone negotiation as best you can, then always have some wise counsel around you. You might be the only person in the room, but that doesn't stop you drawing in some brains around you, where you all identify, the main aim. If you had to put in a sentence, when we walk out the negotiation room, this is what we want. And if everybody can understand that, so that they know what you would feel like, look like, smell like, taste like and sound like when you walk out getting what you want, so everybody knows what that looks like and they could even draw a picture of it, it will really help you then go back down the line to identify and write down what the wants are. And as you make that list of wants, double check yourself, double check everybody else, and just say, okay, fantastic list. Now let's just ask a different question to make sure we haven't missed something off. Is there anything that we need? And make sure that anything that comes up in that conversation is on your list of wants. It's really quite clever too, to, if you can, anticipate the wants of your the team that you're negotiating with, and if you can, prioritize those wants, because that will really help you understand what's really important to them, the sort of the must-haves, the can-haves, and that kind of stuff, or should have, and it helps you know where their priorities sit. So don't just think about your wants. See if you can see what, in your minds, imagine what their list would look like. You may not be right, but that is all part of preparation, and that will really, really help you. In that negotiation process, remember that you and the people you're negotiating with will keep some of the wants, some of those things, maybe quietly up their sleeve. And if you've ever heard of scope creep, and I've heard other names of it as well, is sometimes as you work towards the end of a negotiation, when everybody takes a sigh of relief and thinks, okay, we're here now, and then somebody then says, oh, and if you could just, in other words, there's an agreement on the table, you've kind of signed it in your heads, and then they scope creep. They then push to try and get a little bit more out of you. Very often it's more value, get more for their buck. It's that kind of psychology. But remember, if you're doing it, they're probably doing it as well. So just watch it as a tactic, and also prepare some responses. Scenario plan what those little things they might have tucked up their sleeve for towards the end of the negotiation process. Scenario plan not just what they might be, but how you might respond to it. So then you propose, and if you propose, then this is, you're using open language. It's not closed, it's just a proposal. It's a bit like, I was wondering if we might, perhaps, it's that kind of thing. I'm not saying you be that vague, but it's not cemented, if you like. You've got to be very, very careful about that, and I'll be talking about different negotiation styles probably next time, or towards the end of this one, about red and blue. If you're a red style person, you're adamant, you're dictatorial, and you've got to be so careful there, because it often brings a strong rebuke back, or someone else will anchor, and also it doesn't leave you in an open space to negotiate and move around. So if you're not careful with the red style of negotiation, then you end up with yes-no conversations much too early on, and conflict comes in, and you actually have barely started, and suddenly there's like an argument or a fight going on. So you've got to be careful there. Work out what are your bargaining tools, things that you're going to put down as your wants, but actually you think, yeah, I'd be happy to let some of that go, all of it go, the time frame change on that. I don't know what it is, but make sure you've got some bargaining tools there. Then you have an agreement. An agreement is just in principle only. It's not signed yet. And once it is signed, the follow-up is really important. And the follow-up is, I think, double checking your values, that what has been agreed you can sleep at night about. And I remember, and I've told a story of when I was working for letting agents for a while, and I got a very good rent for a landlord, and everybody patted me on the back and said, well done. And I felt sick because I knew that I had used the knowledge that I had, and it wasn't fair, it wasn't right. And I actually ended up leaving in the end, because I couldn't sleep at night, because I felt had an agreed rent that I thought was too high. And because it was all signed and done, and because I was a small cog in the process, I felt there was nothing I could do about it. I didn't think it was right. I felt I'd used my privilege, if you like, and my knowledge to drive it through. And whilst other people were pleased, I couldn't sleep, so I left. So really test your agreements against your core values. And the follow-up is also with the team. You know, what did we do right? What could we have done better? And what could we learn, if you like, as well? And also look for Trojan horses, look for future stars where people could actually head up negotiation in the future. So, you know, it's very good, if you like, to have that follow-up. Before you can concentrate on the 6 stages of negotiation, we must first understand what negotiation really is. And as I say, and I opened up the program saying, we are all negotiating whether we know it or not. So please, you know, talk yourself up if you can, and wherever you are on your confidence level of negotiation, if nothing else, just say, I'm learning to be better, because we are all negotiating all the time. So the best way we can serve ourselves is be as good as we can possibly be. So a gap analysis is something that I've covered in a previous program, and it's looking at the gap analysis in relation to what it is that you want from the negotiation process. I'm not going to read through them all here, but it is about communication skills, the ability. You don't want a load of people going in a negotiation room who are not good listeners. They're just very good at talking, interrupting, insisting, autocratic in their style. That's not conducive to a negotiation. That's conducive to going in and telling people what you want and expecting to get it. And unfortunately, the negotiation process rarely gives you that result. So we need to have some very good tools here. Power play has its place. So I'm not saying we all go in, in a demure fashion. I think you've got to be very, very clear about what you want and why you want it. If you can explain why you want it, then it really is a very good platform for people to go, okay, you know, I don't know that I want to be part of this, but I do understand why you want it. So it's a very good platform for a negotiation to sit on when the why makes sense, even though people may want to argue for one reason or another over it. So the way that gap analysis works here is scoring where your team are now, scoring what the skills, the attributes that you think will give you the outcome that you want in the negotiation. So I would say listening is very important. Building relationships, I would say, is very important. You know, what team members have those skills? How big is that gap? And how can you train up those team members? Or you might need to substitute one for somebody who can bring the skills into the room. But to go into the room with poor skills on communication, you know, it's a fait accompli as to what will happen. And yes, just going into the end of this program, and I will be picking it up on the next program, are the 2 different styles of negotiation, and they're very crudely called here red and blue. And blue is more collaborative and red is more autocratic. And I'm going to leave this slide up just for a minute so you can have a look to see, you know, what does that look like? How is there a contrast between the red and the blue styles of negotiation? Could you walk in a room with a mixed bag, good cop, bad cop? Yes, why not? You know, there's nothing wrong with that. All I would say to conclude this now, just for this program, is if the people you are negotiating with have a very pure red style of negotiation, then you will not get anywhere if you try and match it with blue. So you need to make sure that either you or a member of the team can match red with red. But if you then show conciliatory gestures and if you show very good listening skills and those communication skills of mirror and matching, repeating back, being assertive, you can then move that boardroom discussion from red into a blue area. So if you are innately more of a blue cohesive negotiator, you can't match your someone with red with your blue. Go in and match them with red and then use your skills to move them to a blue style, cohesive, open style of communication.